And our next student is Danielle, who is also a junior at Wagner College, and she's majoring in anthropology. And she's doing research in the Mexican government relations with the indigenous communities in Mexico. And when she graduates, she wants to work in a career with a non-governmental organization, and I believe back in Mexico. Is that correct? Yes. She's actually from Mexico.
Thank you, Dylan. And our next panelist is Daniela Gutierrez de la Garza from Wagner College, a near neighbor of Manhattan.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My project's title is Understanding the Impact of Government-Indigenous Communities Relations in Durango, Mexico. Before I explain my project, I think it would be good to give you all some context. Durango is the capital city of Durango, a state in Mexico. And according to a 2010 census carried out by the CDI, which in Spanish stands for the National Commission for the Development of Indigenous Communities, of a total population of around 1.6 million in the state, 44,722 were indigenous. These represent approximately 3% of the population in the state. Many of these communities live near the highways, and others live as far away as 5 hours into the mountains from the capital. In order to get to these communities in particular, one must travel narrow, unpaved roads which have no lighting and no protection preventing cars from falling off the edge. Even the streets that are paved have huge rocks in the middle of them. These conditions alone may be perceived as lack of true government involvement. So all of these made me wonder, how come that in this modern time, indigenous communities continue to live in such states of marginalization? I wondered what kind of help the government gives, for what purpose, and with what outcome. I wondered which were the obstacles that both the indigenous community and the government found in trying to improve life conditions for these citizens. And I also wanted to learn how this indigenous community perceives itself and how they help themselves. So in order to prepare for a career in NGO and development work, my capstone project took the form of a grant proposal, which was based both in literature and experiential pilot research. It is composed of 6 sections, which are theoretical orientation, research design and hypotheses, ethnographic setting and study population, methodology, data collection and analysis, feasibility and research competence, and finally, anthropological significance. The theoretical orientation section provided the intellectual framework for my research. I drew from authors such as Manuel Gamio, Nestor Canclini, and Aida Hernandez, who write about Mexico's history, search for modernization, and social movements regarding indigenous groups. On the research design and hypotheses section, I stated my hypotheses for the indigenous community current circumstances, in which I believe they are the result of a series of social, economic, and political factors, which at the same time are resulting of Mexico's historical experience and the dynamics between the dynamics of different power relationships between different parties. Historical context, location, and social media continue to play an important role in the lives of indigenous people. Due to isolation and lack of means of communication, the indigenous communities might find themselves at a disadvantaged power level in contrast to the government, who may neglect or simply fail to provide basic needs for them. So in because of these, on the ethnographic setting and study population, I chose to concentrate in studying a indigenous community living the furthest away from the capital, because I believe these communities develop a special relationship with the government, since the government becomes an essential source of necessary goods for them. And on the methodology and data collection and analysis section, because this is a grant proposal, I stated that I would spend 12 months as an intern at the CDI and as a participant observant in the indigenous community living in the mountains. I would also collect data from the non-indigenous population living in the city of Durango and other government representatives. I wanted to do this because I wanted to see how each party interacted with one another, how they perceived each other, and how all of these resulted in all of their contemporary experience. I also wanted to see which cultural ideas are being reinforced through daily actions. So concentrating on each group, I would carry out participant observation, semi-structured interviews, and life history narratives, paying special attention to each individual's sex, socioeconomic status, and ethnical affiliation, as these factors may influence the resulting data. Yeah, so also on the, I stated that I would, how I would record my research in a journal, and recording also the changing perspectives over each study population as an anthropological, ethnographic study. The nature of the study, my perspectives may change about each social group. And the feasibility and research competence section, I stated why am I qualified to carry such a research. I mentioned my past experiences carrying out participant observation, semi-structured interviews, and I also created a schedule in which I would dedicate a specified amount of time for each population group. And lastly, on the anthropological significance section, I mentioned how this research would contribute to ideas like Boas' historical particularism, Foucault's theory on discourse, and Spivak's epistemic violence. And I also stated that this research would be of incredible significance for the indigenous community itself and the government, to understand why it is that all around Mexico, indigenous communities continue to live in what we believe is marginalization, and how come government organizations such as the CDI haven't been able to completely reach their objectives regarding indigenous communities. This project is usually done during the senior year. However, I had the fortune to do it during my junior year. These opened the doors for me to learn about a topic I did not know much about, even though I'm Mexican, that concerned me personally as a Mexican. Through this project, I was able to make connections with these communities and find my passion, which is working in NGO development work. And through my studies, where it doesn't matter the course I'm taking, whether it be anthropology, history, economics, philosophy, I am able to use everything in my project, because with human beings, I've learned that it's never only one thing that affects our experience. So that's my project. Thank you very much for listening.
And I thought we can just move right from the last theme, which is really, I'd like to ask the panelists if they would just say a little bit about their own experience of when they saw the relevance of their liberal arts and sciences education for their professional fields, or what they were beginning to see as their professional development. In other words, a little bit about how you see this kind of integration that New American Colleges and Universities likes to talk about in your own experience?
Well, for me, I think it was when I had this experience with this indigenous community, and as I noticed that there is so many things that go into their experience. There are so many topics. I found that especially economics related to their situation and history. So yes, it was that experience for me.
But the second question I'd like to pose, and this again is, you don't have to answer in any particular order, is really having to do with the link to civic engagement. So how did you come to value linking interest in the world beyond the campus to your academic programs?
I think that not only with the experience with this indigenous community, but other experiences that Wagner provides in working with the community. In Staten Island, we have a really strong presence of Latin Americans or immigrants. And I think that I learned to value my education because I was able to apply everything I learned into like understanding how communities and the world works a little bit better for me.
So now we come to the unscripted part of our program, truly unscripted. But I think first a round of applause for our panelists. So thank you all very much for your remarks. So the floor is open, ladies and gentlemen.
My question comes to, as Bill Sullivan was talking about earlier, the impact of the residential community on the experience of students at schools like NAC&U institutions, and wondering if our speakers would like to address like the impact of that residential community on their education as a whole, or perhaps on specifically on their research.
For me, I think living away from home in residences helps you learn so many things about yourself, how to manage your time, your money, everything. It also helps you relate with other people. In my case, it had been like 3 years since I've spoken English like constantly, so it was a challenge to have to speak English all the time. When otherwise, if I didn't live in the residencies, I would have like just kept in my small world. But yeah, I think living in residencies definitely broadens your mind also to other people who think differently, especially when there's international students involved, and it just helps you learn about the place in which you are.
Andy Workman, Roger Williams University. It's a little bit different kind of question. I'm interested in how each of you chose the institution that you're at now. I imagine you all had a lot of different options, but what attracted you to this particular kind of education? And also, was the kind of education you actually got what you perceived when you were looking at colleges about these institutions?
Well, for me, I knew I wanted to study abroad. So I was looking at various universities, and I chose Wagner because of its size and its location, and also the majors it offered. But it just seemed like the right amount of size for me, because I was nervous into moving like into another country, and I think that having such a small size classroom, it just really helps you, like your voice is heard, your questions are answered, you get to know your professors in a more intimate way. So it just helps understand the topic better, I think. And well, I think that was for me, and also that I wasn't completely sure which major I wanted to do. So I knew Wagner was offering the majors I I was most interested in, and that it offered the opportunity that to try a lot of different things without losing a lot of time. That was.
You all have cited the importance of having a good working relationship with your advisors or professors. The question I have is, how has the ability to just go into their office and sit down and talk with them about anything influenced you, and how will that help you in your future?
I agree with both of them in that it's nice to have like a personal relationship with your advisor, in that they actually know who you are, they know how you work. The networking part is very helpful also. My professors have like in several occasions given me opportunities to continue my career path. And also because my advisor is doing similar work as I'm interested in, it is kind of a form of inspiration, academic insight, like that.
I'm Rita Thakur from University of Laverne, California. Is any one of you first generation student?
Is what?
What?
First generation student?
Oh, no.
First to go to college? No. Okay, my question is, how do you think that first generation students would have built the confidence you have right now in the college life?
For me, I also think that the liberal arts colleges are like designed in a good way for like students to explore their interests, and and also that maybe to apply to a smaller college would be good, because I feel like small colleges have the potential of like you can do almost anything. Like you can create a club, or like you can build it up, instead of like just like appearing somewhere that may already have everything done, and it might seem more intimidating, but it's like according to each person.
Look, is there anything that, just building on this, is there anything that in your first year experience, in the first year programs you might have been involved with, that was particularly helpful in terms of opening you up, giving you a sense of the broader world around you, and also maybe connecting you to particular professors, or seeing the relationship between different disciplines? What happened in your first year, if there was a first year program?
For me, I think it was that in Wagner we have the learning reflective tutorial, in which we, as freshmen, enter into this course that combines two careers, two different disciplines, and then like you have to analyze it in like uniting both in a way. So for me, it was American art history and American literature, which weren't my major, but still, it just helped me gain like a wider perspective about different things. And even now on my senior year, I still I still talk with my professors from freshman year, and I see their perspectives.
I'm going to just, any other questions? Bill, did you want to make any? Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming today, and thank our students for coming. And thank you, Bill, for moderating this session. And you have a flyer about the book that Bill has written, and I think there are stories from the other 22 members of our consortium in that book, and I think you'll find it highly readable and informative about what our campuses, and I think other campuses in higher ed as well, are trying to do in terms of giving students, as Bill said, and the students I think have articulated quite well, the richness of a liberal arts education, but also paying attention to the fact that they're going to be citizens of the world, and we want them to have that civic engagement experience while they're in college. And we know that they need to get a job when they leave. And we want them to be employable and to have a job, a position that they're really going to enjoy. And I think, as the student said, be passionate about and wake up every morning thinking, this is great, I get to go to work and do what I love doing. So as I said earlier, I guess, or yesterday, I really, meeting young people like the students that are here gives you a real sense of where the world is going to be going. And I think it inspires confidence that we are still on the right track, and that our students are going to lead our nation in the world in a direction that ultimately is going to make lives better for everyone in the world. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you, Bill, and thank all of you for coming.